Hi, everyone. Welcome to GRN Recovery Network Live. I am your host, Kevin Michael Lazick. Thank you all for tuning in. I am extremely excited about tonight's guest, Paul DeCamara. He is an Immersion Recovery Center alumni and also currently working out in Colorado doing community outreach for our facility in Denver, Cura West. Paul has a pretty amazing story, and I'm excited to dive into it. Just one announcement on February 9th. If you are a licensed therapist up in the New England area, I am hosting a CEU seminar. You'll earn 2 free NADAC approved CEUs, and there'll also be dinner and networking. And that is at La Scala Restaurant in Randolph, Massachusetts. And that is February 9th at 4:30 to 6:30. And the one and only Maureen Cavanaugh will be teaching on integrating the families in the treatment process, which is a critical component of what we do here at Guardian. So I want to hop right into it. I'm going to bring in Paul, my man.
What's up, Kev? How you doing?
I'm all right. How are you?
I'm doing good tonight, man. I'm doing really good.
You're in SoFlo, getting a little.
I'm doing the SoFlo thing. Yeah,
Oh,
man,
wow.
doing the SoFlo thing. Saying what's up to everybody down here. Was hoping to get a little sunshine, but I came into a little bit of rain. But that's okay.
That's all right. There's sunnier days ahead, right? Isn't that what they told
right,
us?
Man. Still a good day.
Absolutely. Any day sober is a good day.
Absolutely. That's the truth.
I always wanted to ask you, is DeCamara, because you got a couple things going on there. You got a little Portuguese?
It's actually
Camara
Spanish. It's Spanish from Spain. I thought I was Italian until I was about 14 years old. You know, I'd go over to my Italian friends' houses growing up, and they'd be like, "Oh, DeCamara, it's a good Italian boy." Yeah, I guess I'm Italian. And then I was doing a school project, and my dad was like, "Yeah, no, you're Spanish."
Maybe you should get that. What is it? 24andMe. The DNA
I've thought about doing it. My mom's 100% Irish. I know that. You know, so that's what
you might be surprised.
You never
I know a lot of people that have done it that have been surprised at what came back.
Could be curious to check it out.
It's 23andMe, not 24andMe.
I don't know. They paying you to say that? Is that a little plug?
They're our new sponsor.
I love that.
But Camara, where I grew up, is Portuguese, and then anything with a DE is usually like it's French.
Of Camara, or of the Camara clan, I guess you would say.
Oh wow, you're going back like William Wallace.
Yeah, that's
like
where
clans and stuff.
Roots, my friend. It's all about traditions and roots. What we do today, somebody did before. We're just trying to do it the best we can.
That's a good spot. Who are you today? It's kind of a loaded question, but I kind of want to start backwards. So how would you describe
myself today? Yeah. I'm a 39-year-old guy living in Denver, living life. I am super active in outdoors activities, living right next to the Rocky Mountains. I put a lot of time, attention, and effort into both my mental health, my spiritual health, my physical health. I'm one of those all or nothing guys, like a lot of us are, where it's, am I going to be the worst of the worst, or am I going to be the best of the best? What version of me is showing up? And today for a few years now, I've been feeding the best version of myself.
Amen to that. How do you
living free?
You mentioned spiritual health, and I know that is, for me too, it's the most important piece of my recovery is that spiritual health. How do you maintain that?
Honestly, a couple of different reasons. In my first year of sobriety, I went through a Vedic meditation training and learned how to meditate a very specific way that just resonated with me. And that's something I carry into today. Spiritually, I'm still plugged in with Alcoholics Anonymous, and then I've also gotten into a lot of just men's spirituality stuff that's not really centered super around sobriety, but it feeds the spiritual component, which is, the answer to my addiction.
Absolutely. And I don't, we're taught, the way we found recovery through 12 steps, we're taught that it's a spiritual solution. We have a physical, mental, and spiritual disease. And The spiritual component is the most important piece of it. What is you mentioned is it a Vedic meditation?
Yeah, the Vedic meditation, and there's some of my friends have gone through it. Some of our mutual friends have gone through it. Meditation was always something that, like, it's like one of those things. People talk about meditating, and they talk about it like they're basking in the glory, and it's regulating their body, and they can just deal with the world better. And I was like, I close my eyes and I try and meditate into war zone. I'm not getting what you're getting.
Oh, it's even. I mean, it's crazy to say, but it's like as soon as I go into like even like just praying a little bit, it's like
I'm either thinking about the game. I'm thinking about the game. I'm thinking about my girlfriend. I'm thinking about a million different things other than like the absence of thought and just presence.
And I struggle. I mean, that's something I struggle with. So you found that version of meditation helps you kind of focus and
it's simple. It's like do less. It's like like Yoda over here. I'm like, don't try too hard because then you're screwing it up. Just be. And the way I was taught, just kind of super easy. And just like my sobriety is, like, I found that when I just kind of follow simple instructions from somebody who knows what they're doing, dumb it down for me, I'm your man.
Amen to that. I was raised by a pack of old timers, and they kept it pretty simple, and at that point in my life, that's exactly, what I needed. Complicated stuff for me doesn't work very well. So the simpler and you can put it to me, the more likely I am to follow it. And that's,
I'll look for angles and I'll complicate myself getting out of a wet paper bag. You know what I mean? Because I'll think about 30 different ways to do it before I actually do something.
Absolutely. Isn't that? And I was talking to someone, she was 38 years sober. Like awesome woman, does so much for the community. And we were talking just about like, even though you're, 2 years, 4 years, 18 years, 38 years sober, your thoughts don't change.
That's a good point.
We were talking about what I'm responsible for is my second thought, because most of the time, the first thought that comes into my mind is somehow skewed. So I'm responsible for my second thought and my first action, because I think that's what recovery does. It allows you to apply a filter to that first thought, saying, you know what, this is not right.
It slows you down. It slows me down. I'm no longer reactionary to the world.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Mm-hmm.
So you grew up in Philly. So I kind of want to, dig into your story just a little bit and kind of, tell us kind of how it all got started and what it was like and kind of where it led you.
Sure. I grew up in a suburb of Philadelphia, the oldest of 6 children, and I'm going to take it back to the heritage, but it was an Irish Catholic family. There was a lot of prayer in the house. There was a lot of talk about God. My mom had a big religious conversion when I was like 13 years old and thought she would bring us all along for it. And at 13 years old, I wasn't having it, Kev. I didn't want anything to do with God. I didn't want to pray these prayers. I was pretty happy just playing sports and running amok. And all of a sudden, you're introducing a different way of life and talking about God when we haven't done that up until this point in my life. And I would say that was really when I started to really butt heads with my parents. And I became like a little terrorist in the house, to be honest with you.
What sports did you play?
I played all sports growing up, but I played basketball throughout high school. I was fortunate enough to go to like an all-boy prep school in Philadelphia, and I was a good athlete. And I used athletics as like my source of pride until I stopped playing. I'm like, this is who I am. This is how I fit in with people. No matter what's going on in my life, I can step on a field or a court, and you're going to respect me.
We could assemble a pretty good Guardian Recovery basketball team.
I think we could.
Myself, you, Newman, Mike Morris, who played in college, who was on last week. who's the other one? There was another guy.
I mean, Balsley's always
Balsley.
down, dude.
I got to tell you, man, he's overrated. I
think I saw you comment on his 3-point, like, he won a 3-point contest. I seen on Facebook with a couple of kids.
Listen, I hope he is listening.
Yeah.
I was in North Carolina, and for years, all I've ever heard is like he brands himself as like the Great White Hope, right? The best basketball player, shooter.
Yeah.
I'm like, all right. So he's like, come to my game tonight. And so I go to the game, and I'm not exaggerating. I know I, like to exaggerate a little bit and kind of make light of stuff, but yeah. I don't think he made one shot. He probably threw up 20. He was like 0 for 20.
You know what shooters do? You know, when you're off, you shoot. When you're on, you shoot.
So I was literally, there was like this little thing of stands. I was yelling from the.
You were heckling him. He brought you to the game and you heckled him.
Totally overrated. I was saying overrated.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
I don't think he's ever forgiven me for that.
I'm sure.
And not to mention the terrible shooting performance. The guy he was guarding lit him up for like 50.
He torched him.
So no defense and horrible offense.
Maybe we'll bring him off the bench then. Maybe we won't put him in the starting 5.
Yeah, he's a good 6 man.
It's a great spot to be in, man. You should be proud of that.
No doubt. There's nothing wrong. I mean, I was a 6 man for a couple of years. It's and then eventually you either get called up or you don't.
Yep, that's how it goes.
So your family life. So you touched on that a little bit. You kind of got up to like when you were 13 years old. Kind of tell us about when you first started experimented with drugs and alcohol.
Yeah, high school, and while I was playing sports, it was alcohol. Drinking was another source of pride for me, where I could drink. I could sit at the table with everybody drinking, and I'm going to be one of the last people who's still drinking. And it was fun. Like, it was, the reason I drank wasn't because, like, if you look at my story, there was nothing that I can pinpoint from my childhood to be like, oh, wow, no shit, you're an alcoholic. No kidding, you did those drugs. Like, look at what happened to you. The bottom line is I loved the way the drugs and alcohol made me feel. It lit me up, and I had a great time. You could put me, and we did do this, in the middle of a field with my friends with nothing going on. And as long as we got some beer, it's going to be a great night. Absolutely.
You often hear like a lot of people say that too when they're speaking, like it was never any fun. And, for me, that's just not part of my story. It was great. Many years it was a blast. And, you felt like you were on top of the world, and, you were invincible and you could do anything. And so I just can't relate to that where people say it was just never fun.
No, me neither. I guess it's the chicken or the egg. Am I born an alcoholic, or did it develop over time? Like, I don't know. I just know that I was having a lot of fun. I was going 110 miles an hour, and at some point I crossed that imaginary line of no return.
Yeah. Was it affecting your school life? Was it affecting your family life?
Well, school wasn't important to me, and family wasn't super important to me either, Kevin. So no, it didn't affect much, but people were getting upset with me. My dad stopped drinking when I was about 4. He had gotten into a couple of car accidents. Is he an alcoholic? That's not up to me to say. If I really want to diagnose him, he was maybe the hard drinker. So there was no alcohol in my house growing up. So when I would come home loaded in high school, it was an issue, and my parents did like the hover thing, like the Irish Catholic thing, where it's like every move I was making was being scrutinized. And is this kid telling me the truth? And where is he really at right now? And what's he doing? And all that did was make me a fantastic liar, super sneaky. And I was going to do what I wanted to do, no matter what the consequences were. So I just had to make you believe something else was going on.
Yeah. And that, it talks about that in the big book, being chameleons.
Yeah.
We learn to adapt to our environment, and we learn how to operate to get what we want. And, we can easily change in and out of, different environments. And that's kind of what makes us dangerous.
1,000%. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So did you go to college?
No, I didn't. Once I stopped playing basketball, things really progressed. I started smoking pot, and then I started experimenting with other drugs. And like you were saying, like they were just fun, and they were so much fun. I wanted to do them all the time. I did not think of the future. I didn't think that college could provide me a way of living to support myself or a family. I one of the things I say to people is that like when I was drinking and using drugs, like I was truly for a long time living in the present moment, which is the hardest thing for me to do sometimes in my sobriety right now. You know what
Absolutely.
I mean? In sobriety, I'm either thinking about what I got to do in the future to get to somewhere. I'm tripping about what I just did in the past. So I in my sobriety, really try and live in the present moment where I'm completely okay when I look at it that way.
Yeah.
But with drugs and alcohol, if I had a couple of bucks and could get what I needed, it was a great day. I don't care about tomorrow.
Yeah. You worry about that then.
Yeah, exactly.
So when did it start to like snowball?
Things got real out of control, late teens, early 20s, because I did not want to work. I had developed a drug habit,
The work
and
thing gets in the way, doesn't it?
homie, it's not for me.
Yeah.
Because I was an active all day, all night drug user. And the only way I knew how to make that work is, I came into contact with other people that had stuff going on, and I turned into a criminal,
Did you find yourself like changing your goals and like kind of to meet your behaviors? And there's a part in the big book, and it's in the the back, and it talks about, alcoholics, we change our goals to meet our behaviors, where non-alcoholics change their behaviors to meet their goals.
Yeah.
Does that resonate with you?
It really does. It really does. I mean, I got real into following around a couple of different bands like around the country. So not only did I have a drug habit, but I was moving from city to city, like night to night.
What bands?
This one band called the Disco Biscuits I've seen a lot, and then I did the Fish thing too for years.
Nice.
So yeah, and it was just a nonstop party where my actions were surrounded by the actions of others doing the same goddamn thing. And like I said, I met people that were really kind of doing some bigger things with drugs, and they liked me because we're chameleons and I'm a likable guy, so they're going to give me opportunities to make money. All I really got to do is put my freedom on the line, which at that point in time, like I said, like I didn't care, I didn't.
And it kind of one of the, as when I look back at my story and kind of what I went through is you really start, lessening your standards, and, you start hanging out with the wrong crowd. And, can you talk about that a little bit? Just kind of the crowd you were hanging out with and how that affected.
It just turned into the same type of people where, I was hanging out with them, and there was still people that we cared about each other. It's weird, but there was. But, then you start hanging out with people because of what they have or what they can do for me. And the only reason they're hanging out with me is because of what I have or what I can do for them. And they don't care about my jeopardy or my safety. They care about if I'm putting money in their pocket. And just like I don't really care what happens to them as long as I can keep getting what I need to get. And it got dark fast. The progression was quick. And when I started doing heroin, I did heroin the same way I drank in high school, which was to excess. I've had a lot of bottoms, you know what I mean? If you want to call them bottoms, I've had a lot of wake up calls. There were several before this point, but the first one was like the first overdose at 23, that really made me question, like, the fuck is going on in my life?
Yeah. Take us to the end.
At the end of it, a lot happened. I am a resourceful guy that does not take directions well. I had my first experience with Alcoholics Anonymous, though, and treatment when I was like 25 years old. I stayed sober for 21 months.
Wow, that's a good chunk of time at that age.
Yeah, man. Like I was broken, and that's how I get. So I was broken when I showed up. I believe the first time you get sober is a gift from God, because I didn't do a whole lot in the beginning other than like hang around. But if you have to get sober again, like strap in, because it's not going to be easy. And that was my experience, is that the first time getting sober just kind of happened. And then
Sometimes that's enough though, just showing up.
it is.
And
Listen, man, the Rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, will always have nothing but love for, because they've welcomed me every time, whether I'm walking into a meeting loaded or I'm pissed off to be there, whatever it is, there's always been a seat for me. And it's always been a welcoming place where a message of hope and a solution is being delivered, at least hopefully.
Go
ahead.
You ever watched the so like before Unguarded was played in rehab, it was the Chalk Talks by Father Martin?
I've heard of the Chalk Talks. I've never watched them though.
Oh, you got to watch them. They're unbelievable.
Yeah, no, I've heard.
He like breaks down like the steps. There's different videos you can watch, but one of the things he was talking about was the fellowship, and that was one of the things he said. Sometimes just showing up is enough, and that a group of alcoholics is a magical mix of just hope and love, and it's contagious. If you just show up and stick around, hopefully eventually to find real recovery and really thrive and live a great life, you have to get into the work. But in the beginning, if just showing up is enough, that's plenty.
I agree. That's what it was the first time, is I found some guys that I was just hanging around with, and they made it attractive. So eventually I did what they did, which was steps and helping others, commitments, started meetings. Like I was an active member of Alcoholics Anonymous in my mid-20s. And then I let things like money come in between me and doing my service and what I was supposed to do, and started chasing money and a job, and thought I had learned a whole bunch of things, and God wouldn't turn his back on me if I wanted to smoke some pot. So, why not smoke some pot? But, it doesn't, for me, it doesn't work. It's that allergy. And it's not like, I'm not the guy who's like smoking pot and is like, oh man, I need something harder, and then I'm shooting dope. I'm smoking pot, and then I'm just slowly removing all of the things from my life that keep me sober. Like I'm not really hanging out with the sober guys anymore. I'm not going to meetings anymore. And then my crowd changes, because like I said, for a vast chunk of time, I didn't want to work. I was a criminal. You know what I mean? And then when you're hanging out with people doing bad things, eventually I'm doing bad things.
So I know you're an Immersion Recovery Center alumni. So kind of take us to the end.
So I sobered up again. I sobered up again at 35. So it was 10 years later. I really hung out there for a long time. People, it was dark, very dark. There was periods of time where like, I just, really thought this thing was going to get me. But, a friend of mine who I cycled in and out of the program with had gone to Immersion and said they were doing steps a different type of way, and said it was a group of guys that could probably help me. And I knew this kid got high like I got high. So there was actually a member of Immersion that I asked to sponsor me. And he said, instead of sponsoring you, I think what you really need to do is, dude, you got to give up control. Your decision-making is piss poor, to say it lightly. The steps are going to save your life, but we got to put you in somewhere where you can actually do the steps, because you're just engaged in so much shit right now. Yeah. And I politely told him to F off. I asked for a sponsor, not for treatment. and he said, you're going to call me in 6 to 8 weeks asking me for help again. And I stormed out of his office, and I said, yeah, we'll see about that. Yeah. And
on a mission to prove him wrong, right?
Yeah, I was on a mission to prove him wrong. What I mean? Just like I've always done. And I think 7 weeks or so later, 8 weeks on the button, I picked up that phone and I was like, hey man, can I still come? And they welcomed me with open arms. And it was the best decision I've ever made.
Absolutely. I love Immersion's programs. Tell us, kind of about your experience there and the integration of the clinical with the 12 steps and how that enhanced your recovery and set you on the right path.
Yeah. I mean, so I'd always believed in the steps, and I tried a lot of different things in between the steps. But there's a reason I kept showing up in the rooms, whether loaded or not, is because it had worked for me once before. I had seen it work for guys that get high like I do. And I knew that it's what I needed to do. So that's why I kept coming back. And Immersion put me in that safe container with some guys who, again, made it really attractive. Cool. I thought these guys were cool, to put it in a very blunt way. I'm 35 years old, and I'm like, oh, these guys are cool, and they were talking a certain way that I had heard when I was younger, and they were doing things that I had seen done when I was younger. And it was that safe container where, like, I've written 4 steps literally while shooting dope. You know what I mean? Because I think I'm going to get honest on my 5th, and this is all going to be a magic key that makes my life sobriety. But no, in there, it was a safe container where I could go through the work when I was still super sick in the head. And then, I don't know if I can say this or not. I don't know what anonymity is, but like, we could jab at Patrick Ballsy about basketball, but he was an all-star therapist. That was my therapist when I was at Immersion, and sitting down and talking with that man. He was my therapist for my first full year of sobriety.
I bust his chops, but
we love him.
Yeah, he's an extremely, extremely talented therapist, and I mean, he's so knowledgeable about so many things, that especially spirituality.
Yeah, and listen, man, I was at a point where, like, my family was done with me for years, man. Years, nobody would talk to me. It's like they just get help, figure it out. I don't know what to tell you. You know what I mean? So I had the whole family component going on that plagued me emotionally and psychologically. I was coming out of I was divorcing my ex-wife at the time, because she, God bless her, was just done with being married to a junkie.
Sounds like she was divorcing you.
Yeah, that's what I mean. She might have initiated that one.
I want to stop right there for a minute with the family piece, because for all of us, pretty much, that's a big component.
Yeah.
And I kind of want to talk about, because you mentioned what your active addiction did to that relationship, and the stress and the strain it caused, and your family kind of shutting you off. Can you talk about how recovery has allowed that relationship to heal, and what that was kind of like?
Yeah, absolutely. My parents got well before I did. So they learned how to deal with an active child in addiction, which for them was boundaries, and boundaries I didn't take very well at all. Because I just wanted to be loved. I just wanted to feel love, in a very selfish way. But we needed actual therapeutic help and clinical help in trying to build a foundation of trust and love again, where, they could trust that their son wasn't just going to be dead one day or do something crazy. And, I needed to trust that, like, they weren't going to turn their back on me again. Even though they never did, I just needed that security that my family was my family. And, they went through the family program. They worked with a guy at Immersion again. And it took time, because even though I'm 6 months sober and I'm sponsoring people and this, that, the other, it doesn't mean that they were ready, what I mean, at all. So I actually wasn't invited back to see them or anybody until I was coming up on close to 2 years of sobriety.
Wow.
That's what they needed. That's
and that's something that we have to allow, right? That's kind of what the steps teach us is, even though, we can make amends and, try to heal that relationship, you have to give them the time to heal, and it's on their time. It can't be on your time. And I think that's where a lot of people get jammed up. They want everything back right away, and they don't have patience, because it took, a couple decades for you to get into this situation. There's no, it's going to take you years to dig out.
Exactly. And what sobriety does for me is, I'm like, I love my family. I love my friends. I call the people down here in South Florida I'm with right now my families, because they are my second family. But I do the work that I do so that no matter who is in my life or not is in my life, I can be okay. You know, I can take rejection. I can take loss. I can not get what I want and still be just fine.
Yeah. That's such a powerful statement because, you know, it's something that takes work, and, you know, rejection and alcoholics is not a good thing, but,
Yeah.
you know, that's life. You know,
Yeah.
stuff is not always going to go your way. You know, people are not always going to do what you want them to do. You know, stuff's going to happen, bad stuff's going to happen, good stuff's going to happen. And that's, you know, my first sponsor told me you want to avoid the peaks and the valleys. You got to learn to live in the rolling hills.
Yeah.
So what's that relationship like today
I
with your
mean,
family?
it's amazing. You know, I was just home for the holidays, you know, welcomed with open arms. I get to be an uncle, you know, to my nieces and nephews. All of my 5 younger brothers and sisters love seeing me. And, you know, I was at the dinner table after dinner on Christmas Eve, just talking with my girlfriend, my parents, and we are just kind of talking. And, you know, my dad, again, said it. He's like, you know, Paul, you're my hero, you know, for what you've gone
Wow.
through, how you've come out. And to hear my father, who's been my hero, you know, just for the way he's conducted himself in the world, say that to me is, you know, it's powerful, man.
That's as good as it gets.
That's as good as it gets, Kev.
No, it really is.
No, it really is, man. I'm just telling you, like, that's why this shit's worth it, man. The relationship, the family, the love, the you know, that's what makes everything worth it.
It's a beautiful thing. What's your, just for people listening, kind of some things that you found most conducive to your recovery today? And even when you were early sober, what was the formula for you?
Yeah, the formula for me is like, well, it's like what you talked about with like kind of that fellowship is, you know, I have a group of guys in my life today that I can be vulnerable and honest with about whatever's going on in my life. There's no facade that I create of who I am or what's going on. I can chop it up with my boys about what's really happening in my life.
Yeah.
And
it's like the total opposite of,
dude,
you know, we were talking earlier about.
And to go from one polarity to the other is not an easy thing. And it starts with one domino, which is as a sponsor or a therapist or someone you can actually say what's going on with and not get rejected. And they're just like, yeah, dude, me too. Or yeah, dude, I've heard that 1,000 times. You're not alone.
Yeah.
And then you can kind of just start to that domino effect.
You're not terminally unique.
No.
This old timer always says that you're not terminally unique. We're all the same.
Yeah, we are, man.
Some of the details and the, you know, situations and is different, but when you boil it all down, it's the pain, it's the, you know, the fear, the doubt, the remorse, the guilt, and you know, and that's what the 12 steps allows you to process and work through and come out the other side of it.
It is, man. It really is. It's those feelings, like you said, like I used to put myself apart sometimes in a meeting. Oh, this dude doesn't get down like I do or whatever. But like when you talk about the feelings and the hurt and the despair and the demoralization, you know, it's all relative to your experience. And when you feel those feelings, those are real, you know.
Absolutely.
And they hurt.
Yeah. That's what happened. It was an emotional battle for me. You know,
Yeah.
I had many physical battles, getting arrested, all that. You know, when I knew the gig was up was when the drugs and the alcohol stopped suppressing my emotions.
Yeah.
And it wasn't working anymore.
Me too. I had many illegal as well as health consequences before I actually got sober. But when I got sober, it was just like, you know, I got that gracious offer to come to Immersion. And then it was just like, I was in a position where I moved back to Los Angeles. I'm in the Hollywood Hills. I'm living with some dude I don't really like because we're making money together. And I just kind of looked around and I was like, I'm here again. What the fuck am I doing? You know what I mean? I know how this ends. I've done this for years.
Last question, what would you tell someone who's struggling if you were sitting in front of them?
Well, the nice thing is I do get to sit in front of people that are struggling.
Very true.
And I speak from the heart and my experience. And my experience is that find somebody who you think might have what you have, and just let them make your decisions for a little while, man. Because that's what did it for me. Is I found some guys who were really sober, and I actually, trust isn't easy for us, but you got to start with like the little trust falls, like I said, and it's a domino effect. And at 35, I was just doing what I was told, and that's why I got sober.
Amen to that. Well, I want to thank you. You are an awesome dude. I love you. You've done so much good for so many people, and you're an inspiration. So thank you so much for chopping it up tonight and spending a little bit of time with me. And I know you are Team Guardian, just like I am.
Yeah.
Great company to work for.
Yeah. This is the best job I ever had, by far. Best company I've ever been associated with. I owe everything I have to my start at Immersion and continued into today. And thank you for having me on. I mean, the guys you have on here, like, everybody who you've had on here are people in my life that I look up to still today. And you're one of those people. So I appreciate the offer. And it's a great pleasure to be here.
Well, thank you. Thank you all for tuning in. That does it for this week. We will be back live next week, Thursday night, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Be well and stay safe.